Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm here with the Zarda Playbook, Emery Hunt. I'm Tyler Merkovich. We're bringing you our 2010 season preview for the Cleveland Browns. They started last year an abysmal 1-11 before winning 4 games in a row, probably saving Eric Mangini's job at least for one more year. Randy Lerner handing the reins over to Mike Holmgren this year. And quarterback position, a big overhaul. Anderson and Quinn are out. In are Jake Delhomme, Seneca Wallace. They drafted Colt McCoy in the 3rd round. Running back position, they draft Montario Hardesty, very high on this guy, but Jerome Harrison showed a lot of promise last year, and fullback Lawrence Vickers is very versatile there.
Well, I look at that quarterback spot. Can Jake Delhomme avoid the interceptions that played in the last 2 seasons in Carolina? And that not only put Carolina's offense backed up, but also is going to put Cleveland's offense backed up if he continues to the trend that went on last year, negative 12 turnover differential for the Browns. So they have to get better at protecting the football, and Delhomme can't throw those interceptions. So with that said, I think McCoy may see some time this year. I look at the fact that they run a West Coast offense with a heavy emphasis on the run, but when you pass the ball, you need your quarterback to be accurate and protect the football. Those are two of McCoy's strengths. He doesn't throw interceptions, and he's very accurate in short to intermediate passing. His deep accuracy is what you question about him, but you don't have to have deep accuracy in the West Coast offense. Plus, his anticipation is keen. I've never seen somebody with anticipation like that. He gets the ball out before the wide receivers out there break, so therefore it compensates for his lack of arm strength. So I like McCoy, and it was a great pick by the Browns. I think he's going to be a star for Cleveland. So they hadn't had since the Kozar days. So I mean, you look at that running back situation, like you mentioned, Jennings, Ken Harrison. Do it over 16 games. I like James Davis, and I was kind of upset that they drafted Hardesty, but that's just me personally. Like James Davis, I think he's a solid back, but you still have him. Now you have depth. You have Hardesty, a guy, if he can stay healthy, you have depth. Vickers, you mentioned, a versatile guy to Colorado, fullback or tailback or eye back in a pinch, so they're solid.
That might not be a bad idea, putting McCoy in, because the O-line is solid. They were 22nd in sacks allowed, only 30. Because they really need to get something going on this offense. 32nd in total offense, 32nd in passing offense, 29th in scoring. They have somewhat of a rush game, 130 yards per game. That was good for 8. Joe Thomas, the left guard, right guard Eric Steinbach, and second-year man center Alex Max out of Cal, really coming into his own. So that's a good offensive line, and they're relying on 2 rookie receivers last year who should be improving to this year. That's Brian Robisky and Muhammad Massaquoi. They picked up tight end Ben Watson also.
Also, keep an eye on tight end Alex Smith that they picked up. They form a formidable duo, so that's a good solid. When you have any talented tight end, you have Watson, you have Alex Smith, so that's going to be 2 solid tight ends that they have for any quarterback that's back there. And then you also want to keep an eye on Stuckey. Chancey Stuckey they picked up from the Jets. So a guy that has some deep speed, that can stretch the defense, can allow other wide receivers. Maybe Robisky is not as explosive as Max Coyle or Stuckey. He can work underneath. So they have to really get that passing game going. That O-line, I love the O-line. You mentioned Joe Thomas, left tackle, is going to be an all-pro for years to come. How great was that picking up Alex Mack from California? Also they landed Tony Pastros in the offseason, so that's going to be a big pickup. And they're going to make some moves. It moves some people around. It helps out. It moves Womack inside to guard. So now you have Pork Chop Womack at the right guard spot. Now you have a big offensive line, very solid.
I like a guy they drafted at Arizona State, Sean Lovow. This guy could play in the NFL. He'll probably be a backup this year, but that's good depth right there. Carlton Mitchell, wide receiver. He has some talent. Look at him. Mike Fury, also a backup. You mentioned Chancey Stuckey also. So if the O-line comes around, it could help out that red zone TD percentage, which was woeful at 28. It was 43%.
There are 2 things we know about Cleveland. They can run the football, and they added some talent on that offensive line, and they added some talent at the tight end spots. The quarterback is the biggest question mark.
Well, defensive coordinator Rob Ryan, of course, 3-4 defense. This defense had some promise last year, but the numbers don't show it. They were 31st in total defense, 28th in rush, 29th in pass, tied for 21st in scoring. And you mentioned the turnover differential was not good. They were 29th in that. Sacks was pretty good, 40 sacks, tied for 8. So that was something to look forward to. Shaun Rogers, will he be suspended? Who knows? But when he was out of lineup last year, this guy really stepped up. Atita Rubin out of Iowa State, he might be one of the NFL's most best-kept secrets. This guy, they're 4-1 with him in the lineup, and he's going to start at nose tackle. They want to move Shaun Rogers to the outside in 3-4. Of course, they lose Corey Williams. But when it comes to linebacker, they reloaded. They lost Cameron Wimbley. Maybe that's because of the lockout situation in the contract. But they add Matt Roth, Scott Fajita, Chris Gokon, and of course they have DeQuell Jackson and company, and a lot of depth there.
Well, I look at the defensive line. You touched on it, but I like who's going to provide pass rush from the defensive end position in that 3-4. That's the biggest question. Can they get to the quarterback from that 3-4 spot, from the 5 technique? That's a question mark on the D line. But you want to keep an eye on defensive end Keith Grennan, a guy that has a lot of talent, is maybe ready to burst out this year. He's going to provide a lot of ticks for the Browns, and he's going to be in the backfield a lot. So keep an eye on him. Talented playmaker. And also, you mentioned the linebackers. I like Raw, a guy that reminds me a lot of Chad Greenway, a guy his motor never stops, always hustling, always making plays, always finds himself with TFL. So that's going to be a good pickup. And Chris Gokon is a vastly underrated pickup for the Browns. So that's going to help a lot. That's going to ease the loss of Wembley, whose production slightly dropped, since he was drafted as a rookie. So maybe it was the best time to let him go. And hopefully he can pick back up in Oakland, because I want to see him have a great career. But, I like Roth and I like Gokon. Their linebacker is going to be athletic.
Well, their secondary was a mess last year. They only had 10 interceptions. That was good for 29th, but they addressed that problem. Also, they add Sheldon Brown, the veteran, for Philly, who's pretty good. First round, they go after Florida quarterback Joe Hayden. Now, one of these guys is going to play opposite of an underrated cornerback. That's Eric Wright, who's really coming to his own. This guy started at USC but ended up at UNLV. He is going to be a good corner one day. He's good. I should say he's going to be a great cornerback one day, because he's good now. Safety, it's Abram Elam and Mike Adams, but they drafted rookie TJ Ward out of Oregon. And backups, they got Nick Sorensen, and they also got out of Nebraska Larry Asante, very versatile, playing corner or safety. So if this secondary comes around, it'll complete a pretty good defense.
Yeah, the secondary was a strength for the Browns, I think. I love the fact that they upgraded with Sheldon Brown. He may play nickel and allow Hayden to start at corner. That's what you drafted him for that high. So now you have a formidable 3 solid corners. Your starter, your 2, and your nickel, with Brown and Hayden, and also Eric Wright, a guy that's physical and that can also tackle. And I like the fact that they had a lot of young depth. You bring in TJ Ward. You also bring Larry Asante, a guy from Nebraska. Nebraska safeties and defensive backs can tackle. And they can also knock the stuff out of wide receivers. So coming across them, so that's a good thing to have. And I like that there are a lot of young talent in their secondary. But it's all predicated on whether or not they can get to the quarterback. And you mentioned that. That's the most important thing. If they can't get to the quarterback, that secondary is going to get eaten alive.
Well, I can't believe we went through a whole preview of the Cleveland Browns without mentioning this guy's name. Josh Cribbs set the NFL record last year, and their special teams is one of the best units in the league. They were 3rd in punt return, 7th in kick return, and they were just great in coverage. They got a bunch of specialists like backup linebackers, Jason Trusnick, Blake Costanzo, and Vic Kuhn too, a defensive back. So these guys really bring it for Cribbs, because Cribbs is spectacular in the return game. Phil Dawson is pretty good. Kicker and punter Dave Zastel. So Brad Staley has a lot to look forward to, because the special teams unit is one of the best in the league and can really help them get over the hump.
Yeah, Dawson and Zastel are 2 solid kicker and punter combinations, respectively. So that's impressive. You don't have to worry about the kicking game. You mentioned Cribbs. Cribbs is the best football player in the NFL. You heard it here first. Football player. Maybe not the best wide receiver. Maybe not the best kickoff return. Football player. If you need him to do anything, he can do it.
I think he can play guard for them.
Right, and he can help out on pulling trap plays as well too. So, but I like Cribbs. I like their special teams. They're solid. Cleveland's going to look vastly improved this year. And I really wish McCoy would start. If you're going to struggle at the quarterback spot, why not struggle with a rookie? But they have running game in place. They have solid wide receivers. They're going to be fine.
So many quarterback question marks, but Cleveland has some promise.
Right.
You didn't think you'd hear that soon, but look for them. For more, visit footballgameplan.com/NFL or check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/footballgameplan.